Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 45. So we are going to be looking over the charts, give you a quick rundown of what happened last week, and then we're going to give you the insight for next week. So we are going to be looking at gold and Euro USD for tomorrow. But yeah, we'll start off with New Zealand dollar to the US dollar. So what we looked at last week was an upside move, and we're very close to this turning point now. So what we can see here is, we've had that bullish momentum come into play. So this marking out is from last week's analysis. So touching on from last week, we can see how price had managed to make a good turnaround into the market. What we can now take on from this is, the next point of interest, which is, price to lead into this area here. So again, just to remind you what this area is, it's just the 618 retracement area. So it's just around this point here. But I slightly put it up just a little bit just to come on to 0.725. So again, just a nice psychological number that you can look into. So price may not necessarily come exactly into this area, but I'm just using it just as a tool. So temporarily we could be looking at a nice move to the upside, and then we could be looking at the next move, which we will first need to judge and see how it rises to this, because if price manages to continue it further, then we're going to have a more continuation trades. But for now, I just want to see how it can react to 0.725, and then we can review. More or less, we could be looking for a downside opportunity after this, but I'll keep that for another video once we get to this area, and then we can discuss if we're going to be heading to the downside or if we're going to head further higher. So that's pretty much where my outlook is for this pair. So if we move on to AUD/USD, so what I'm looking at for this week is the short side to the down, basically a move to the downside still. I am second guessing this level in the market here, but the bias to the down is still towards the downside in my opinion. So what I will be looking for is, if we can get a potential move to the downside still, and I want to see if we can continue push level. We may have, price come slightly up and then have a turn to the downside, but again, that could be something like this. Maybe there's still enough buying momentum to come into play. The reason for that is, just because I'm looking at this momentum still currently strong. So if this low holds, we could still be trailing up higher. So again, that's pretty much where I'm thinking price could head, and then pretty much have like a little turnaround here. So that's what I could be thinking of doing next week or so. Oh, excuse me. So from that point onwards, if we can get that push to the upside, the main move that I'll be considering is that downside as well. So I just want to see if we can continue this move to the downside. So we'll see exactly what happens and how far this dips, because I want to see how price reacts to 0.74 if we can actually get into that position, of course. Moving on to USDJPY. So this pair, I was looking for a downside move overall, but for now I think that there is a possibility of price moving more towards the upside. So what I'm looking out for is a move to just to push higher. So basically, push up to take out this high, or potentially find some resistance here before we get a drop. So I'm just going to move this all sideways. So we can see we've got a bit of bullish momentum to continue here. I'm not entirely too sure if this is strong enough. Purely, I just want to see a bit more impulsive action come into play here. So for the time being, as long as we stay below this structure low here, so just under 103, if we just pull this across, we should be able to stay quite bullish with this and see if we can take out this point in the market here. So yeah, I'm pretty much waiting for this upwards move. So for now, what we could see in the market is a potential move to the downside to test this structure in the market and to take out this low before heading higher. So something like this could be a possible outlook. Pretty much just holding on, and I'm going to be looking at this point in the market for a nice support level. So if we could come to this point, see if any rejection comes from this, we could then see that upside move. And then this is where I really want to focus on, because if we can, see what happens and how strong this move is, this could give us a good insight into whether we're going to be continuing a lot higher, or if we're going to have a rejection. So if we go above 104.6, so this zone, this would be a good indication that we're going to be making more continuated moves to the upside. And again, we'll give you more of an update if we do get past that, and then we can discuss further opportunities to actually get in on this continuation move to the upside. So either way, it doesn't matter, but the main thing to look for is potentially just this buy move to the upside. Whether this acts as a support, or if we come to this zone here, then this is a good possibility. So just keep an eye out for that for USDJPY. Touching on now to CADJPY. We're looking at this point in the market. We've been not really looking too much of this, purely because I wanted to see how price reacted to effectively to this trend in the market here. So if I move this across here, if I get rid of these two trends, so what we discussed previously is just this wedge pattern here, and I was looking for, I was anticipating much more of a strength to the upside. Now for this point at the market, as we can see, we are really struggling to push a lot higher. As we can see here, we had the very strong move here, the second retracement, the very sluggish third move, and then followed by a fourth move, which is really much sideways now. So what I'm focusing on here is a potential move to the downside. Now, whether this means price comes up and then goes down, then so let it be. But ultimately, I am waiting for a move to the downside. So it could happen with one more push to the upside and then a break, or it could happen this week and push lower. So I'll leave both options available. So if that happens, then you can pretty much capture that move too. So I'll put that as a target here. So psychologically level speaking, we're seeing 82 being respected. So if we can find some further bearish momentum, which we currently are seeing right now, we could see a potential push lower. So there is a potential move to the downside if we can hold it. The second thing to make note of is this uptrend here, which is the daily time frame perspective, but it's also actually in combination with the week. So again, it's just a very strong trend line to consider. So that's why if we're able to break this trend line, we should be able to see some clear momentum come into the market and to potentially push lower. So again, that's ultimately the move that I'll be looking out for. And if I take a look at the RSI, we should have some weakening in divergence. So we can see as price is going higher and higher, we are making some significant lows into the market. So there is loss of momentum coming into play. And as you can see, as the peaks start to go lower and lower, price action is going higher and higher. So we do have a clear mismatch here. And obviously, if you know that the divergence is what we primarily use to look for entering, this is a good indicator to look out for. So yeah, a good tip for you guys if you want to use that idea. So moving on to EURJPY. So taking a look at this pair. So what we're anticipating here is a potential move to the downside. Now, we clearly haven't managed to do that. We've pretty much had a complete opposite bias. So let's have a check in here and see what we can ultimately look for. So what I'm taking from this pair from this week is how price is potentially pushing lower, and is basically, it's making a nice retracement to the upside. So I still think that we are capable of pushing into this zone, but it's not just yet as I did anticipate. So what I'm first entirely looking for is just bearish momentum to kick in at some point. So if we get a move to the upside and then to come down, then that would be something ideal. So it could, ultimately, we're just looking for that drop again, really just into the market. I am looking to see if we can get into 124. Again, we're watching this high. So if we come above this zone, I will be cautious of any. We'll be looking for any bullish momentum, but for the time being, I think we are capable of pushing lower. So I will be keeping an eye out for this pair. And see if we can trade through it. The other possibility is that we get a price move to the upside, but again, it really just depends on the market. But we will have to update you guys for that. But for now, the bias is towards the downside. So I am looking further lows. Now looking at NZDJPY. Let's take a look at this one, because this one has, it's been very quiet. I haven't really been looking at these pairs for, the JPY pairs have been pretty much hidden. I've been really focusing more on the US dollar pairs. But yeah, so what we can see here is price moving sideways. We did have that nice retracement as we did call last week, so it's very nice to see. So what I'm primarily looking at is, if we're capable to push higher and to potentially retest the uptrend here. So if we're able to do so, look at that momentum to come in, and then we could get a potential reversal. It really just depends if we can get that touch into onto the uptrend, sorry, but it doesn't have to necessarily reach up there. So we could say, for argument's sake, keep that as a precaution, but it could be within this area in the market here. So keep an eye out for any bearish momentum, and as soon as you see that bearish momentum, that's when we're going to be trying to get in on the market. So ideally, I just want to see price make that shift over and turn towards the downside. So that's ultimately what I think is capable of happening this week for that pair. And seeing as we have the AUD-JPY, they should have a similar resemblance. So yeah, this is just the long-term play out, but I think we can start to get a bit more of a refined approach. So ultimately, I do want to see price still fall into this area, so roughly at 77. But it's ultimately, we can see how price is testing the uptrend really nicely. We are getting some bearish pressure into the market, but I do think we are capable of pushing just a little higher. Again, let me just check on the divergence if we can see anything. So the highs are pretty much going, so I think there is capable of pushing higher. We are pretty much waiting. So ultimately, we just want to see how price reacts into this area. So if we can ultimately see what's going to happen here. So this is a nice, very big consolidation, but if we could look for something with a big push to the downside, then that's where we want to see. So that could happen if price pushes up and then we get a drop, or the second option is we just get a little push and then a big drop. So either way, you're going to be looking for the third one is we get a big drop from the start of the week. So it's pretty much waiting for that momentum to kick in. So either way, that's where we're going to be watching the market and to see if we can turn it around. That's where the move is and where the money is. So that's where I think it makes sense to just wait for those points in the market. Now looking at the next pair. So we take a look at USDJPY, USDCHF. So the last two pairs for this week. Sorry, let me just grab a quick water. So what I'm looking out for this week for USDCHF is that upside move. Now, I did think that we could get it last week, but obviously we saw that there was a lot of bearish pressure into the market, hence why we didn't get in on any of those moves to the upside. But I do think that we are capable of pushing higher very soon. So as long as we're capable of staying within this area here and we don't push lower than this level, so 0.875, we could in theory see price push a lot higher. Now let's take a look at the RSI and see if we can take anything from this. So we can see how price is pretty much respected quite well. We're not really seeing any loss of momentum just yet. So with that indication, we could see price pushing just a bit lower and then pushing higher. So it's something, you know, just to be mindful of before executing your trade. Obviously, you need to be very patient with this process because as swing traders, you can't just be, you know, executing all over the place. You have to really pay attention to the market and what price is telling you. So yeah, don't force any trades at all. Just make sure you're waiting for what you know that works. So again, for us, we're waiting for that momentum to come into play, and then hopefully if we can get in on that, we could see price come into 0.9, and then once we're there, I'm going to get rid of this for now because we will by that time look for an update. We will update this video this pair in particular, and discuss how price reacts from this point onwards, because we could see a massive continuation higher, or which I think is most likely is a potential push lower. So again, it really just really depends upon how price moves across 0.9 respectively. So that's pretty much for that pair. Now looking at our last final pair for the end of this week. And you know what we're looking out for this is that continuation move to the upside. So looking at last week, we did think that this bullish momentum was strong enough to hold, and as you can see, it clearly just fell through. So what is the takeaway from that? Well, you know, this is why it's really important to stay you know, really to pay attention towards the market and follow the momentum. You could have had a nice sell-off opportunity here, which we didn't see, so we didn't necessarily catch this. But as we can see now, price is starting to slowly come back up. So my play on this now is just to wait for you know, a potential retest on the downtrends. On this downtrend, and then that continuation higher. So it pretty much really just depends how price plays over the next few days or so. But yeah, there is a potential to catch on to this trend. So there's obviously we've not missed although we've missed the very bottom, we can pretty much capture some continuation moves to the upside. So I think we are capable to find some potential trades. I do believe if we take a look at the take a look at the RSI, so we can see here that we're not necessarily making any new significant lows. But if we take a look at this prior low here in the market on the RSI, again, this really is quite far back, but we still technically have a good significant divergence here. So this essentially means that, you know, price is obviously lower here, but we can see peaks rising, or the troughs rising. So again, it really just depends how you look at the market, because again, this is your own perspective. But I have been waiting for this momentum kick for quite a few times now. So we had it in December, we had it in the start of January-ish, and then we were having it more towards the end. So if this is the real true bullish momentum, then we could be looking at some good, this low should hold in theory, and we should see some continuations more towards the upside, and therefore we can obviously continue it, and then we can start to progressively move and take a look into this pair further, because on the higher time perspective, we could have some short-term well, not short term, but more intermediate moves which are impulsive towards the upside. So again, that means that there's going to be a lot of pips up for grabs. So hopefully you guys don't miss out on that. Excuse me, but yeah, that's pretty much all for this week. We do have a lot of setups really coming into fruition over the next few days or so. First 2 weeks have been quite slow, so we can see that price is slowly, catching up, and we're slowly starting to see, moves coming back in and making those ups, making those drops into the market. So again, now it's just a matter of, getting into the markets with the good risk to rewards and not risking too much. So yeah, that's pretty much all for this week. We do have a lot of other ideas coming up in the next week or so. So obviously we are looking at gold and EURJPY tomorrow. So we'll go through that with you guys. But yeah, that'll be all from us. If you are new to this channel, we do have a trading group that you can join. Link is in the description, of course. If you have any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Again, just leave the comments in the section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So hopefully, guys, this did manage to help you and give you some value. If it did, make sure you're subscribed, and of course, we'll see you guys all in tomorrow's video.